So if you'd like to hear any lore, and I mean any lore whatsoever, consider checking out the Ghoulman Entertainment Patreon. From the $1 tier to the $10 tier, your voice is heard because once a week I ask a poll and your voice gets to be heard on deciding what this week's lore is. So by way of the Ghoulman Entertainment Patreon, I bring you this week's lore on the one, Arlen Glass from Fallout 4. Arlen Glass, the co-founder, along with George Wilson, of Wilson's Automatoys. Now, Arlen Glass was the lead toy designer up until October 21, 2077. They founded Wilson's Automatoys in 2042, and they built toys together for 35 years. Arlen Glass is the man who invented the Giddy Up Buttercup, which we first saw in Fallout 3, and later we saw in a bigger production in Fallout 4, and it turns out that the Wilson Automatoys HQ is in Boston. The Giddy Up Buttercup was a massive success, even though the toy started at a high price tag of $16,000. Now, here, and we're going to talk about these statistics that I'm about to read to you a little later on, but it gives you an idea of what kind of money they were making. This is the Giddy Up Buttercup sales forecast for October 1st of 2077. Based on current market conditions, analysts expect sales of the Giddy Up Buttercup to decline in the fourth quarter from 122 million to 110 million, a year-over-year loss of 17%, and a disappointing start in the important holiday sales period. Brand stagnation and brand sterilization at the current $16,000 price point are blamed for the continuing decline. I want you to just focus on, listen to what I said there, but I want you to remember what I said. That's a direct quote from the wiki, the Fallout wiki, fallout.fandom.com, the Wikipedia, if you will. That's where I get all of my lore. It's a direct quote, but I want you to remember the numbers of 122 million and 110 million. As the years went on from 2042 up until the day he no longer worked there, the workload became more and more, and Arlen Glass began to neglect his wife Cheryl and his daughter Marlene. Now, George Wilson, the man who founded the company with Arlen, was just as involved with the company as Arlen, if not more, to the point where he was missing his son Mark's graduation, his birthdays, even his wife Mark's mother's funeral. He skipped out on to go to work more. In late 2077, George Wilson hands over the entire business to his son, Mark. Now, the way it's written in the note, and I don't have the note written here, I'm not going to paraphrase anything, but it's written very much like he just is saying, here you are. This is for you now. You now have control of the business, and he puts in there, you deserve it, but does he? There's no mention of his son working for the company. It just seems like he gives it to his son because he doesn't know how to say to his son, I love you. He doesn't understand how to say, I'm sorry for prioritizing work over you, and more importantly, your mother. And it just seems like Mark is given the keys to Eden without any sort of repercussion. Now, Mark is bitter about the entire toy business because of the contempt he has for his father. Remember the numbers that I brought up earlier? I said 122 million to 110 million. Those numbers were faked numbers. Arlen, when he finds out about these numbers, responds in an email that is a draft that is never really sent out because it's a draft. It says, draft re-Salesforce. This is paraphrased now. I don't believe these numbers. We've had solid sales for years. What happened? Ellipses. We need to expand our market. Premier editions, collectible variants, maybe even a boys line, ellipses. But I can't do this alone, Mark. Your father and I collaborated on everything. I don't know what the hell you've been doing for the past year. So here it seems like, just in the time that Arlen he's not in charge. He's not the president. The president was George Wilson, and he just gave the presidency to his son so he could run this company. And there sounds to be a little bit of contempt in the way he writes that, because it seems very much like, hey, why are you just not working with me on this? I want to work on this. And because Arlen is the reason, more or less, if he never got into business with his father, more or less is the reason why he never had his father around, he's just kind of shirked him to the side, to the wayside. Now, Arlen wanted to bring out mythical horses as a boys line. He wanted to have a princess, a premium princess pony. This kind of very much feels like if you took how like Barbie and G.I. Joe was and then added in My Little Pony into that. He wanted tie-in promotions with Hubris Comics, Nuka-Cola, Vault-Tec, just different ways. He thought maybe we could have a red pony, which honestly, Barbie had soft drink promotions all the time. If I remember correctly, there is a Coca-Cola and a Pepsi Barbie. That's playing both sides. You can't be a Crip and a Blood girl. What are you doing? Now, intro the Scythe Program. And again, Mark Wilson is so incredibly unhappy with his father and the life that his father has left for him. The Scythe Program is a classified U.S. production program directed by Colonel Thomas Nelson of the Department of the Army. The program would nationalize privately owned manufacturing companies under the idea of steady profits. A toy company was about to start making toys of destruction. They were about to start making weapons. Mark Wilson, as the president, put in a bid on the program, and as of September 1st of 2077, it was accepted. The conversion of the facility was completed by October 15th ahead of schedule, and Arlen was completely kept out of the loop on this. He worked on new robotics for toys and paint schemes. No one during this entire time returned any of his phone calls. So this is a man who went to work every day and sat there and tinkered and went at what he believed was his life's calling, to make these toys. This is a man who genuinely understood what made a child happy. And I want to talk about that a little more at the end because he gets it. And there's a quote that I'm going to read directly from him that proves that he gets it. But remember, he had a daughter at home, a young daughter. He misses her dance recitals. He was referred to as the old man at this point. So I don't know how young his daughter was. Maybe he had her, because if they were making toys for 30 years, let's say they both started when they were 35, they started when they were 25 or even 20, that would put him at 55 or 60 years old. So he had a younger daughter, let's say 10, right? Let's say he had a daughter later in life. He had a daughter that was in the primary age demographic of someone who would have been playing with Giddy Up Buttercups. There is a holotape. I don't have it written down because I didn't think it was super important, but it turns out to be pertinent right now, that she leaves him a holotape that it's his wife and his daughter. You could hear the wife going, all right, go. And she's like, Daddy, come home. Like, I miss you, dog. Like, she didn't call him dog. But, like, she's like, I miss you. I want you home. Like, I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. Please come back. And then she goes, oh, and Buttercup says hello too, because it's the horse that he made for her. You know, if I can't be there, the horse can. On October 20th of 2077, Automatoys had a board meeting, and Arlen was expecting to present all of his new ideas. He had no clue that a U.S. military representative was going to be sitting in on the board meeting. About 45 minutes into this meeting, Arlen completely loses his mind. He can't believe that the factory that makes the happy, the factory that is designed for children to envision better lives for themselves, to escape how much of a scary world it is for them to have a little bit of respite in a world that they don't understand and frankly doesn't understand them, is about to be turned into a manufacturing plant for weapons. He tried many times to speak to Mark Wilson, but was continuously removed from the premises. So the first time he blows up, they take him off, and he kept trying to come back, and security kept coming back and pulling him off, and to the point where the cops got involved. And as you could probably imagine, after all of this happening, Arlen was fired from Wilson Automatoys, a company that he helped found and that he worked as the heart and soul. He was considered the heart and soul by pretty much everybody there. He was let go by his best friend's son, who never really worked there to begin with. On October 23rd of 2077, Arlen tried to make a final plea to Mark Wilson to rethink his decision. Arlen left his apartment in Cambridge to Wilson's Automatoys HQ in the Back Bay neighborhood of Boston. Even though he was kicked out, he still had a good rapport with the security guy at the front desk, and he allowed him to come in, and he gave Mark his final plea holotape. The final plea is as much. Mark, do you know why toys are important? They help children dream. They let them imagine a better future beyond this blasted war. They give them hope. 30 years ago, I met a man who understood that. Your father and I built Wilson Automatoys on that hope. He poured his life into that hope. And now, you've thrown it all away. Sold it in search of a quick profit. It's still not too late. If you won't do it for me, for your father, for the company, then please, do it for the children. This is a man who genuinely knew, who genuinely got it. When I was going through the wiki, the Nukipedia, if you will, I didn't see anything that talked anything about his childhood. But I wonder who Arlen Glass was as a boy. Arlen Glass is probably about 300 years old. Close to it. I'm thinking if he was like 60, 210, that's 270 some odd years. This is a man who's close to 300 years old. This is a man who's lived many a lifetime. I want to know who he was. Mark took this holotape and threw it in the garbage immediately. Now, for the more astute viewers at home, you'll realize that I said it was October 23rd of 2077. On his way home, the U.S. was attacked, presumably by the Chinese, and the bombs had begun to fall. He tried to make his way back to the apartment, and when he finally got there to be with his family, the apartment in Cambridge was nothing more than an irradiated crater. All he longed for at that point in his life was death, and he lay in the hole waiting for it to happen. He felt such an immense amount of remorse because he wasn't with his family. He didn't get to see his daughter grow up. He didn't get to spend time with his wife. And now he has to sit there in the crater and crave his own demise because he realizes he messed up. You never know what you have until it's gone. You never realize you want to be free until you've been freed. You don't understand what power you truly hold at your very own fingertips. Being a toy maker and an engineer helped him get by in the waste and helped keep him a bit sane. The thought that he did not get to say goodbye to his family, especially his young daughter Marlene, to this day, like I just said, haunts him. He would eventually settle down at the slog to help other ghouls, fixing up giddy-up buttercups for old time's sake, hoping to give one to a wasteland child. His meager tools, a wrench and a screwdriver that he has at the slog, where he settled, is a long way off from the high-tech tools that he once had at Wilson's Automatoys. There's a quest you can do for Arlen. It's called Giddy Up and Go. Arlen asks the sole survivor to travel to the Wilson Automatoys factory and recover spare parts for a project he is working on. If asked for a reward, he'll offer a base payment of 150 caps, but he can persuade all the way up into 300 caps with some speech checks. Once Arlen is given Marlene's holotape, his daughter, that I referenced briefly, where she was like, yo, come home, he will leave the slog and wander the Commonwealth. Wiseman will thank the sole survivor, as he didn't know what the sole survivor did, but will mention that Arlen finally made peace with his past and left. A completed giddy-up buttercup along with Arlen's note can be found on Arlen's workshop counter. The note says, for a child who needs it, Arlen Glass. That's Arlen Glass. That's a man who understands the happy. That's a man who, it's one of the few times Fallout 4 really gives you some genuine character development. It's one of the few times that I feel like I sat there listening to a character and went, yeah, man, I get it. And I feel like that's just all these games should be, all these open world. I'm currently playing Mass Effect, and that's what I feel like these games should be, is just you going, yeah, I get it. I understand where these characters are coming from. I sympathize with them. They're good people at their core. They've just been through a lot. I hope you've enjoyed that, because this has been this week's Lore. Hey everybody, wasn't that great? Didn't you enjoy that? A little bit of Fallout lore to start your day? Maybe midday Fallout lore? Hell, right before bedtime? Doesn't get any better than this. If you like this, check out the Patreon. There's a link in the description below. If you want to have your voice heard, if you want me to do a certain piece of lore, the best way to get in contact with me is through the Patreon. The people who are on screen right now, I gotta thank them. Thank you to these fine folks: right now. Because of them, the show can continue to grow and get bigger and better. And if you want to check it out, from the $1 tier to the $10 tier, your voice is heard every single week. I filmed the full Atomic Radio Hour podcast episodes live in our Discord. Hey, you know what? While you're here, check out the Discord. There should be a link in the description below. Check out my Twitter. Check out the show's Twitter. Come hang out. It's a good time. My name has been Vince. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you to the Patreon. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.